Let's begin our journey into building representational state transfer application programming interfaces, commonly known as REST APIs, using Flask. Flask is a micro web framework for Python, a modern approach to creating lightweight and powerful web services with Python. Flask is a lightweight web server gateway interface, abbreviated as WSGI, Web Application Framework. It is designed to make getting started quick and easy. It is also extensible and flexible for complex applications, and is perfect for building RESTful APIs. Now let's look at how to get started. First, install Flask using pip. Open your terminal or command prompt and type pip install Flask. Next, let's create a minimal Flask application. First, import the Flask class from the Flask package. Then create an instance of the class. After that, define a route using the app route decorator, and finally define a function that will be executed when the route is accessed and returns a simple string, "Hello world." Let's take a moment to understand the architecture behind REST APIs. The main principles are stateless client-server communication, meaning that each request from the client to the server must contain all of the information needed to understand the request, without taking advantage of any stored context on the server. Uniform interface using standard hypertext transfer protocol, abbreviated as HTTP methods. Resources are identified by Uniform Resource Identifiers, or URIs. And finally, representation of resources in JavaScript object notation, abbreviated as JSON, or extensible markup language, abbreviated as XML. Now let's look at the HTTP methods for RESTful APIs. The GET method is used to retrieve resource or resources. The POST method is used to create a new resource. The PUT method is used to update a resource. And the DELETE method is used to remove a resource. Let's create a basic REST API. Here we will create endpoints for a simple task management API. First, import Flask, Jonify, and requests from the Flask package. We use Jonify to convert Python dictionaries into JSON responses and request to access incoming request data. After that, create a Flask application instance. Then define sample data, in this case an in-memory task list. This is just for demonstration purposes. In a real application, you would use a database. Then define a GET route for retrieving all tasks. Use the app route decorator to define the route/API/tasks and specify that it should only accept GET requests. Define a function called getTasks that returns a JSON response containing the list of tasks. Finally, define a GET route for retrieving a specific task. Use the app route decorator to define the route/API/tasks/ followed by the task ID and specify that it should only accept GET requests. Define a function called getTask that takes the task ID as an argument, loops through the tasks, and returns the task with the matching ID. If no task is found, return a JSON response with an error message. Now let's create a new task using POST request. This is how you add new data to the API. Use the app route decorator to define the route/API/tasks and specify that it should only accept POST requests. Define a function called createTask. Check if the request contains JSON data and if the title field is present. If not, return a JSON response with an error message and a bad request status code, which is 400. Create a new task dictionary with a unique ID, the title from the request, and set the done field to false. Append the new task to the tasks list. Return a JSON response containing the new task and a created status code, which is 201. Finally, include the main block to run the application in debug mode. This allows you to see detailed error messages in the browser. To complete the API, we can add put endpoint to update tasks. We can add delete endpoint to remove tasks. We can implement error handling and add data validation. Also, we can connect to a database to persist the data and add authentication for security. Let's explore additional resources to expand your knowledge. There is official documentation that covers all aspects of the framework, from basic concepts to advanced features. You can learn how to write unit and integration tests for your Flask API using PyTest and other testing tools. You can also implement JavaScript Object Notation Web Token, abbreviated as JWT, OAuth, or API Key Authentication to secure your Flask REST API endpoints. Thank you for attending. Now let's explore the best practices for building REST APIs. You should use nouns, not verbs, in endpoints and use plural resource names. Use proper hypertext transfer protocol, abbreviated as HTTP, status codes, and version your application programming interface, abbreviated as API. Implement pagination for large datasets and provide clear error messages. Here's an example of versioned API with proper status codes. First, import Flask, Jonify, and requests from the Flask package. Then create a Flask application instance. Then define a GET route for retrieving all tasks with pagination parameters. And finally return a JSON response containing the tasks, the current page, the limit, and the total number of tasks. If you like this video, hit that like button and don't forget to subscribe. Visit CodeLucky.com for more such useful content.